Hey everyone, my name is Mike. I'd like to just take a moment here and show you something I came up with for your rear tail retract assembly doors. Right here I'm working on a Top Flite giant P51 I built here, and I'll show you here what I got. Okay, so here's my assembly here. I'm actually using the Flite electric tail retract assembly. It's bolted down in there. So as far as closing for the doors, I simply ran springs down on here, bolted them to the doors, and a fishing line just tied from side to side running through the loop of the actual tail assembly. So then when the retract comes down, it pulls on that string and closes the doors. So there's that part, but then I faced the problem of the doors not having any tension to stay open, to stay out of the way for when the retract closed. So I need something to hold tension there. So here's what I did for that. This side I actually finished already. As you can see, it's got tension. It's holding it open. So very simply, I used yet another spring here. As you can see, it's actually bolted down on that beam assembly there. And then I have more fishing line. Sorry about the lighting. Fishing line's tied onto the end of the spring right there, and it's coming up where I actually drilled a hole in the fuselage right there, running down to it. So the hole's just big enough for the fishing line there, and I drilled another hole into the actual door assembly itself right here, and I hardened both of those up with super glue. I ran the fishing line through, pulled it through where the door is all the way open here. I pulled a little bit of tension onto the spring, and I marked the fishing line with a permanent marker so I knew where I wanted the knot to be to keep that tension to hold it open. Just barely enough to hold it open, that's it. So then I pulled the tension on the spring and tied about 5 knots right down on that black permanent marker mark, and I cut the excess off. So that's it for that. So here I'll show you a couple steps of actually doing it. So these springs I'm using here are actually very light duty. Doesn't take much tension to spring them. They're looped on both ends. So essentially what I'm going to do is go ahead and tie a knot here with this fishing string. Double knotted actually. And I'm going to give it a little yank back here a second. There we go. So now that's on there. Cut a little bit of the excess off. It doesn't need to be on there. Then I'm going to go ahead and down here, and I'm going to zoom in here. I already have a pilot hole drilled into the wood down here. So here, I'm going to bolt this in real quick. So here I'm going to use a long Allen wrench here. It's just the type of screw I'm using. You use Phillips or whatever you want to do. And tighten it down here. So as you can see, the spring is bolted down there. And I'm going to take the other end of this fishing line, and I'm going to route it up through the hole in the body here. Focus here. As you can see, fishing line's coming up there. I can get the camera to stay there. got a lot of excess here. A little overkill, but then I'm going to take my drill a hole right in my door right alongside that other hole. And I actually take my super glue here, harden these holes up a little bit. So now that I got my knot tied real well on the door here, I'm going to trim off the excess. And now it's got tension, just enough to hold the door open. So then, as you can see here, everything's complete, and here's how it works. There you have it.